everyone to today's gathering. And as we celebrate families, we want to, and fathers especially on today, I want to just allow our hearts space to remember fathers that are no longer with us. If you are blessed to have your father still here in the land of the living, then offer a grateful prayer to your God and the eternal one. If not, be thankful for the time you had with them and their impact on your life, and bless their memory on today. Remembering that no father is perfect. In fact, there's no such thing as a perfect human being. That's an oxymoron. The very nature of being human is to be imperfect. And so we never talk about, I had a perfect or imperfect father or mother or child, because we're all just the way God designed us to be. But as I welcome you to this gathering today, and my witness is that all these years, my testimony, God has been good to me. And I share that today because that was my dad's favorite song as he got up in age shortly before he passed. And it was truly his testimony that all these years, he died at the age of 80, all these years, God had been good to him. Now, today, again, is Father's Day, and I want to celebrate, I want to honor, I want to encourage, I want to inspire, but most of all, I want to affirm the importance of fathers, especially for our Black fathers. And I want to also recognize that family structures are changing. And in fact, they have changed significantly since I was a child. But this is not new. Since recorded human history, family structures have changed as we have evolved as a human family, as the environment has changed and demanded that we change. So let me just share a few stats with you that I think are important. As recorded by the U.S. Census Bureau, one of the increasing shifts in the family in the U.S. is the rise in same-sex or same-gender parenting. And the stats are as follows. Approximately 1.4 million parent households in the U.S. are headed by same-sex couples. That's a significant shift since I was a child. Female couples that are couples that are together in romantic or married relationship had 63% of same-sex parent households. This I thought also was interesting. Same-sex couples are more likely than different-sex couples to adopt children or become foster parents. And I say kudos to them because we know that especially amongst Black children, Hispanic children, the older they get, the more difficult it is for them to be adopted. And many of them linger in foster homes in the system until they max out. So that they have the heart to adopt and take into their home children that are not their biological children, I applaud that. Well, let me say that we don't know yet what the effects of this shift in family structure will have in the long term. Because the US stats have just started recording these statistics. And so time and longitudinal studies will tell us what the real outcome of this structure of parenting will be on the future. I applaud anyone who has the courage and will to parent a child, including those who are not their biological children. Today's focus, though, is on the father's role. I don't believe we have to diminish other family structures to emphasize the importance of men as biological fathers, stepfathers, or biological males as father figures in children's lives. We don't have to diminish one to embrace and support the other, which is what we so often do in our culture. I believe the masculine and feminine still play a fundamental role in the foundation of our society and the future of our families. Let me share a few more stats with you as I narrow the lens to focus on the fathers in the US and then on Black fathers. There are an estimated 74 million dads in the United States. 72 million are biological dads. 33% of all children, approximately 24.7 million, live in a home without their birth father, about a third, little more than a third. More than a quarter of the 100 million men in the US that are biological fathers of at least one child under the age of 18. 4 out of 5 fathers of minor children live with at least some of those children. That's 79, almost 80%. Almost 3/4, 72.6%, live with all of their minor children. This stat shows us that fathers are predominantly, by and large, in the household with their children. But this is for all races in the US. According to the Pew Research, dads spend more time caring for their children today and are less likely than in the past to be the family breadwinner. They spend more time nurturing and hands-on with their children, but less likely to be the family breadwinner, the one who's bringing home the bacon, so to speak. Most of today's dads view parenthood, and I thought this was interesting, as a key aspect of who they are. And many have clear aspirations for their children. In fact, the vast majority of fathers with children under 18 say being a parent is either the most important or one of the most important aspects of their sense of self or who they are. 85%. And that's not much different from moms. It's about 88% of moms who say the same thing. So moms and dads in this country feel that being a parent, a father, a mom is the most or one of the most important aspects of who they are. And let me just share a few stats on Black fathers, because we often hear so much negative information, misinformation, stereotypes about Black dads, the absentee Black father. And we have a culture, I think, that goes out of its way to diminish the role of dad and fathers. And that's not to say that fathers have, in some cases, have not lived up to the task. In some cases, neither have moms. In some cases, many of us as just individuals, as human beings, have fallen short, as the scripture would tell us, of the grace of God. And so we don't want to focus on the negativity because we know that's there. Today, I want to focus on the positivity. So 4 out of 5 fathers of minor children live with at least some of those children almost 80% of the time. For Black fathers, and this is stats from 2 years ago, so it's recent, 2023, about 1.18 million Black families were headed by a single father, a Black man. 1.18 million Black families were headed by a single father, a Black man, which is a significant increase from about 25 years ago, since 30 years ago, since 1990, when less than 500,000 families were headed by a Black man, a single Black man, meaning he was the sole parent guardian in the household. About 3% of Black men ages 15 to 19 are fathers, compared with about 1% of white, Asian, and Hispanic males. Not a significant difference. Black children and what's called resident fathers by the U.S. Stats, or the Pew Research, I'm sorry. About 52.5% of Black children live with their biological father and mother. They are resident father. I mean, they live in the household with their children. Over half, 52.5%. We have more single fathers raising families than you saw when I was a child or just a few years ago. The term single father household, I'm just defining these terms for you, where a biological or legal father is the only parent in the household. And some of this is due, as I shared, that has changed since the 1990s. Some of this is because of the increasing rates of incarceration of women of color. We saw an exponential increase in Black women and women generally being incarcerated since the 1990s. And so that shift was necessitated because Black women were being removed from the household by the system, and Black fathers did step in to raise their children. This I also thought was really significant, according to the research, that Black fathers are deeply involved in child care. Because when Black fathers live with their children, they are deeply involved. Studies show they are often more engaged in daily child care than white or Hispanic or their white or Hispanic counterparts. Meaning when they are there, when they're present with their children, the studies show they are more engaged with their children than their white and Hispanic fathers. Cultural expectations within the Black community often emphasize strong family ties and active family roles, fatherly roles. Therefore, this high level of involvement is a personal choice and a reflection of Black community values. For example, how Black fathers are more engaged than white or Hispanic fathers when they live with their children is they're more likely to bathe, diaper, or dress their children daily. They're more likely to eat meals with their children. They're more likely to help their children with their homework daily. Let's debunk some of these myths about the father that's not present with their children, about Black fathers. Today, I want to just offer up to us as a community that sometimes we, as African Americans, are the ones who are the ones who continue to perpetuate negative stereotypes that are fed to us through the culture, through the media, through Hollywood, through the music industry sometimes, that perpetuate this idea in our heads about negative images of Black fatherhood. Some of the reasons, again, why we don't have the same level of fathers in the household, although over 52% are, is because of this mass incarceration that we have seen with Black men in this country that has often removed fathers from the home and from their children's lives directly. But even so, there's still a level of engagement with fathers that are not living in the household with their children, even when they are incarcerated. And I know this personally because I worked for years with children, with persons incarcerated and children with incarcerated parents. And I used to, when I started working in this community, I had a program where we would take children to visit their moms who were incarcerated because we thought the mom was the dominant one in their lives. Until children and fathers begin to share with us that they want to see their dads also, because before being incarcerated, the dad was in the household. The dad was involved in their life. They had a connection with their dad. And so we expanded the program where I would take them to see their dad and their moms. And I saw no difference between the interaction between the child and the dad and the child and the mom. They were connected, and these were predominantly Black and Hispanic men. They were connected deeply with their parents. And so debunking that myth, even when a parent, a father is incarcerated, that it severs the tie, it pushes them out of the household. They can't be there to eat the meals, to do the homework, to dress and help in those ways, but they're still connected with their child. And we need to just begin to push that narrative and to share that. As I end this part, I want to just end with a tribute to my own dad. And I honor men who courageously do their best to father their children. It's not an easy job being a parent, whether you're a mom or a dad. It's not an easy job. I'm blessed to have grown up in a two-parent household. My mom and dad were there. And my mother and my father were my first role models, not someone in Hollywood, not some big music, person, but it was my mom and dad. They were the first two people I looked up to and wanted to emulate. My measure of a man and what it means to be a man has always been my father, always. One interesting story I'll just share quickly. My dad, back in the day, for those that are old school, know that the men, Black men, or especially on Sunday morning or Saturday night, they go to the shoe shine stand and they have had their shoes shined. Well, my dad religiously had his shoes shined on Sunday morning. He would never go out with shoes that were not shined, and he didn't have a lot of shoes. He had a Sunday pair of shoes and a weekly pair of shoes. That was it, 2 pairs. But those shoes were shined. And as I got older in my life and began to date, one of the things I always would notice about a man first was how his shoes looked. If those shoes were run over, if those shoes were dusty, if those shoes did not look like they were shined, I didn't care what he looked like. I was out of there. And I didn't realize that that was so significant for me until later when I was in college, I think in grad school. And I wrote a paper about how this one guy missed this real opportunity because he was straight up from the head to the floor. But we got to his shoes, I couldn't get beyond the shoes because it was just psychologically, that for me represented something about who he was. That's just one of the things that I took from my dad. My dad was a man of his word. If he said it, you could take it to the bank. He would say, all I've got is my word. He says, I got to meet my word. I got to live up to my word. That was who he was. If he said it, he was going to do it. He was a man who valued time. I don't remember him ever being late for anything in his life. He valued time and the importance of time. He was a father that prayed for his children. He prayed with his family. He taught us how to pray through his example. And he would lead us in family prayer. He taught me the value of knowledge and money. And he would say that knowledge in your head or education is like money in the bank. You ain't got to tell nobody what you got. But when you need it, you can use it. You can draw from it. So always get knowledge, always get an education. He taught me to always be truthful, even when telling the truth hurts you. And that was a hard one because there were times in my life that I would try to wiggle out of that, where I always have to come face to face with, you got to tell the truth. Even when it feels like it's going to crush you to do it, tell the truth. He taught me to respect everyone, but to be afraid of no one. And this was important. As I went out into the world, and a world that was still, as I was growing up, a hostile place in many situations, like it's becoming again today, for women of color. I worked in the corporate world. He taught me to show respect, but don't be afraid of anyone. Hold your ground and be who you are. He taught me as a woman that I had equal power to a man, that God hears me, God hears my tears, he hears my voice, and he recognizes and responds to my prayers. I honor my dad and all dads today. Whether your dad was a Rolling Stone or whether he was settled and constantly in the home, You are here because he lived. His seed resides in you. My dad would also always tell us the first commandment was a promise. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land that the Lord thy God giveth. And he would say, if they fathered you or birthed you and then walked away and did nothing else, they're still your parent. They're still your father or your mother. Honor them. And that doesn't mean you have to agree with them. That doesn't always mean you have to be in their space. But it means that you recognize that you are a branch on that tree. And the fruit cannot curse the root and live successfully. You are rooted in that tree. And your task is to pass on to your fruit those things, those examples that maybe you didn't receive. Now, my parents weren't perfect, and I learned many things from them. I also learned how not to do some things. And in my parenting, I have not been perfect. And it's my prayer that my children will learn how to do some things and how not to do some things from my example. So the tree is always growing, and the branches and leaves are always spreading, and the fruit is always reproducing. Do the best you can, dads, with what you have and what you know. When you know more, as Maya Angelou would say, when you know more, you know better, do better. For now, do the best you can. Don't let nobody put you down. Don't let nobody diminish who you are as a man, as a father in your children's life. Do the best you can, whether you're home with them, whether you're living in a separate place, whether you're the sole caregiver, whether you are incarcerated, whether you're dealing with mental health issues, and you're struggling just to hold it together in your own life. Do the best you can. You may not always be appreciated, but your labor is not in vain. I bless all fathers on today. May God be with you and strengthen you in all that you do. All right, we're going to move on. I'm ready to